Hello everybody, it's the Bulls Show and welcome back to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be talking about our new episode of Chicago Bulls Weekly. Now, what happened in Chicago Bulls Weekly is that we look at the previous results for the Chicago Bulls that they had in this previous week and obviously talk about the upcoming week for the Chicago Bulls as well. While in the middle of that, giving out awards for the players that need to improve as well as the best bench player and the overall best player of the week. We've got a lot to get through, ladies and gentlemen, but before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Bulls Show, turn notifications on, and let me know in the comments below your thoughts about the Chicago Bulls previous week. Was it a positive one? Was it a negative one? And where can we improve in the future? I predicted the Chicago Bulls to go 2-1 this week. We actually went a little bit of an opposite trend from that. We actually went 1-2 this week. Very, very interesting stuff. But even in our losses, and yes, you could arguably say we should have won some of these games in all honesty. Even in some of our losses, I do feel like the Chicago Bulls have done fairly well. It wasn't blowout losses. It wasn't humiliating losses. It wasn't losses where we were down by 23 and had to fight all the way back. We were very close and competitive in every single one of these games. And a couple of them you can put down to the referee decisions and everything of that nature. But for the most part, we have done well, I believe, this week, even though we've ended the week on a negative record. So with that first game, we versed the Toronto Raptors in Canada, and we lost this game 113-104. Again, it's one of the situations where no Zach LaVine, our best team kind of wasn't there, and Toronto had a game plan. And their game plan was to trap DeMar, double team DeMar, make sure they throw bodies at DeMar, and have everybody else beat the Toronto Raptors, which was unsuccessful. And it goes the same with the next game against the Toronto Raptors in Chicago. The big difference between this game and obviously the game that we had in Chicago is obviously we won this game 111-97. Toronto's offense was much worse in this game, I believe, and also we had Zach LaVine in this game, which means the double teams didn't necessarily work out as well. The double teams on DeMar, yes, they took DeMar out of the game, but Zach LaVine and Vucevic were able to beat the Toronto Raptors team alongside of a lot more contribution from our bench and from everybody involved in that game. A big step in that game, and very difficult to beat the Chicago Bulls 2 games in a row like that, because we would have learned our lesson from that Toronto Raptors game in Toronto, and then obviously we used our lessons and we, I guess, attacked Toronto in a different way in that game in Chicago, and it worked out very well. However, the next game against the New Orleans Pelicans, unfortunately, this is the game where a lot of people had a big issue with the referees and the foul calls, and even the 2-minute report kind of suggested that the Bulls had a lot of calls missed on them. Nevertheless, we lost this game 115-111. I said in the game reaction in that game, I will never ever blame a Bulls loss just based on the referees, because we still had areas where we could improve. Our turnovers, our fourth quarter offense and defense, and everything of that nature, I thought was a big problem in that game against the Pelicans. Yes, the referees helped. Yes, if they got the right calls every single time, we probably would have walked away with a win. But I'll never solely blame a game on the referees. And I don't think the referees have an agenda against the Bulls. I honestly think if you ask all 30 NBA teams fans what they think of the refs, they'll just say that they suck. And maybe the referees are just not necessarily that great at their job, or maybe their job is too complicated to the point where maybe they just make the wrong decisions based on what they believe and stuff like that. It's very inconsistent because no ref is the same and everything of that nature. I'm not going to get too involved in that. Obviously, I'm just basically saying my personal opinions here. But yes, very, very bad game against the Pelicans in terms of the final end and what that could have meant for the Chicago Bulls. And because of that game, our record is now 6-7 and we are currently minus 500. So we've got to get back to that level, ladies and gentlemen, back to 500, back to above 500, and start to get a little bit of a more positive record going for us. Nevertheless, let's continue to discuss, I guess, the must improve, the 6th man of the week, and the player of the week. Now, I've got to be honest. I think the must improve is the hardest award to give for the Chicago Bulls. For the past 3 weeks, I've really had deep trouble trying to figure out who actually deserves this award. Who is playing so poorly for the Chicago Bulls where they need to pick it up in the next game. We don't have guys we could target out here because there are inconsistent performances. Alex Caruso, for example, it could be a potential guy you might give this to, but he was my personal player of the game in the Toronto Raptors game in which we lost with 4 points only, 1 from 10 from shooting, but had 11 rebounds and 11 assists and had a huge plus minus. He made a huge difference. Then obviously in the game against the Pelicans, he had 0 points, 3 assists, and 1 rebound. Inconsistent. Javonte Green had a couple of nice performances, but then had a 2-point performance in one of the games against against the Pelicans, as well. One of those games, I'm not really sure which one. So I feel like our problems are team-based. I don't feel like one person coming into this team or one person not playing on this team solves our problems. I think we even saw that with Andre Drummond a little bit. Not one person will solve all of our problems. They will make them easier to handle. We could probably cope with them better, but nothing will be resolved by an individual basis, in my opinion. A lot of our problems are team-based. So I find it very difficult to just give it to a must improve to, I guess, anybody. But for the sake of the video, I know I've kind of copped out the last couple of weeks and not giving must improves, but we are losing a lot of games here. So I'm probably going to target one person. This may be the incorrect choice, but I really don't know who else to give it to. I'm going to give it to Javonte Green for his 2-point performance against the Pelicans. Recency bias, call it what you like. I really am finding it difficult to really give it to someone. So if you have any other suggestions, let me know in the comments below. And of course, if you guys all agree, then maybe we can change that answer by, of course, the video's upload and everything of that nature. And of course, I will definitely take that into consideration. My 6th man of the week is going to be Goran Dragic. I feel like that is the little bit of the most consistent part. I don't think he had a great game in one of the games. I think it was against the Toronto Raptors, and it was in Chicago. That was a game I think he didn't necessarily do very well. I can't actually remember, but a very good game in Toronto for a guy that got booed throughout the entire arena. He stepped up in that game, and I think he welcomed that, I guess, applause, or I welcome that criticism that he got. He welcomed the audience basically, and he went to work and he shut that audience up really quick. But obviously we still lost the game, so that doesn't really matter. And he had a great game against the Pelicans as well, but ultimately I don't think that necessarily matters as well. The player of the week for me is going to be a very interesting one. I actually think I'm going to give it to Zach LaVine this week. I think Zach and Vucevic are the ones that you could probably give it to. I think Zach LaVine had a great game against the Raptors, and he didn't play one of the games this week, so maybe Vucevic will be another candidate. But he had a great game against the Raptors. He played decently well against the Pelicans as well. I would like to see more from Zach LaVine, I can't lie. And I'm not going to hide from that fact that, yes, he missed one of the games, but in the other 2 games he played solid. We could see so much more from Zach, and we know that. And it's just about being patient enough to give him the chance to do it. And that's what I'm hoping a lot of people will give to him. But ultimately, 13 games now, close to 14 games into the season, we want to see a little bit more from this team, including Zach LaVine and including everybody else. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a couple of games to look forward to here. We've got 3 games to look forward to this week, starting off on Monday for me, but Sunday for you guys. That's why I'm making the Bulls Weekly today, just so I can prepare for any injury news the next day. We're going to be versing the Denver Nuggets at home. Very, very interesting game. Denver, I believe, the last time I checked their record was 8-3. They're playing some really good basketball at the moment. The West is absolutely surprising how many teams, I guess, are struggling compared to how many teams are doing well. Never thought I'd see the Jazz where they were, ladies and gentlemen. But Denver's a team that I think when they're fully healthy and they can get more, I guess, games underneath them a little bit, they're a dangerous, dangerous team. But the Bulls have had a good track record against Denver recently. So I hope we can find a way to prove good and to have a good game at home against the Denver Nuggets. I think this is a winnable game for us. We'll wait and see what we can do. Then, we've got another game against the New Orleans Pelicans. This one will be away from home. Obviously, we've already versed them before at home. We only versed them twice this year. So, that's going to be an interesting game as well. Can we respond from how the Pelicans played against us last time out? How will we play Brandon Ingram, who had a very good fourth quarter? How are we going to play Zion? This is obviously going to be their home court advantage as well. They're going to have the crowd. CJ McCollum is a guy that I don't expect to stay cold forever as well. So this is going to be a tough game, and we've got to see if we can find a way to win. And then our last game is coming against the Orlando Magic. They have arguably the rookie of the year at the moment on their team. Wendell Carter, former Bulls player as well. Young pieces, young core players that can definitely cause some problems, but obviously we're probably the most favorable to win this game. I'm hoping Vucevic shows up in this type of game. You'd love to see players show up against their former sides, and I hope Vucevic has a great game this time out. But nevertheless, that's going to be an interesting game against Orlando, a game that we should be winning, but we have seen already before with the Spurs, with the Wizards. we do struggle against teams that we should be beating right now. Let's hope there's not a trend that continues and we do comfortably beat the Orlando Magic, or at least just beat them in general. That's all for this Chicago Bulls Weekly, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next Chicago Bulls video. Probably going to be talking about the injury updates ahead of the Denver Nuggets game. As we know, there are a lot of injury updates for the Chicago Bulls so far this year, so I'm just preparing myself for the next one against Denver, because I'm sure it will come at some point. Have a wonderful and safe day. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay tuned for more. Take care and peace.